Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and every year on this anniversary date I miss it and forget to do anything. But today, July 30th, is my YouTube anniversary, and I thought this year, I put it on my calendar and I thought maybe I'd do a special video. I did put a feeler out there for you guys to give me some ideas for what to do a video on, but I didn't get any takers on that. So you're left with what I came up with. And what I came up with is to go through the Etteilla deck, or one of them. I have a few, but this is the one I chose to use. I think the original name of this was Etteilla's Grand Gypsies deck or something like that. I no longer have the box, unfortunately. It was given to me either in the late 80s or the early 90s by a neighbor who was throwing away an old lover's stuff. And she knew that I was a tarot reader, so she asked me if I wanted this and another deck. And I was like, yeah. I said, well, first I was like, oh, I feel bad. Why don't you try to give it to him? And she's like, you either take it or it's going in the garbage. So I was like, okay, never mind. So I took it. But at any rate, I thought it would be fun since, my channel is for the historic decks. And, Etteilla has done a lot for tarot readers. He was one of the first people who brought consulting the cards out of the darkness. I'm convinced that little old Italian ladies and maybe little old French ladies were reading the cards, for their folk, right? But maybe, he came at the right time when it was no longer maybe as risky politically or socially to come out and say, what the hey, this is what I do for a living. So we owe him that, right? We owe him, that thanks for that. Although sometimes a lot of us fly under the radar for a really long time. I mean, I was probably in my 50s before people really even knew what I did. I mean, people who came to me knew what I did and my family knew what I did, but it was a long time. I was in it, probably for at least 30 years before folks knew what I was up to. So at first, in some regards, it's a clandestine kind of activity, but not so much anymore. And certainly, Etteilla, helped make it so. So I thought we would go through this deck, take a look at it, and see how the inspiration for this deck was a Marseille Tarot deck. They basically, I think what we believe is that Etteilla, and the individuals who began creating their own decks were basing them on the French Tarot of Marseille style kind of decks. They either completely disregarded or didn't realize that the Italians came up with tarot in the first place. So they were going with what they knew or what they thought they knew. So at any rate, I'm going to flip the camera and we're going to take a look at Etteilla's cards. And where it will be necessary, I'll pull out some historic TdM cards to see how they jibe with what Etteilla came up with. Okay, so I had another idea when I went off camera, and that was to show it side by side with a more recent publication put out by Lo Scarabeo. And this particular one was part of a Kickstarter that if you bought the Montaigne, no, was it the Montaigne? If you bought one of the other Visconti decks, rather, if you purchase one of their Visconti decks, you got this as a bonus. And I already had this one, but I wanted the Visconti deck, so I bought this too. So I don't know that they sell this independently. or, you know, I think the only way you probably could get this particular one is if you purchased it from somebody who was in on the Kickstarter. But at any rate, the reason why I'm comparing it with this one is because this one came with cheat sheets, which I thought might be helpful because I'm not particularly knowledgeable with Etteilla's deck. Remember, Etteilla's deck was the springboard for many other occultists who deviated from what may have been, interpretations of the cards for people who may have been interpreting the cards. They set up, Etteilla and others like him, Oswald Wirth. They created an agenda, or they created a folklore, or they created their own history of what these cards represented and what they meant. So I'm going to refer to the cheat sheet created by people who know better than I. Okay, the first card, it's tempting to call it the Fool because it's very similar looking to the Fool, right? And the French name given to it is Folly, I suppose, which we can understand to be like foolishness. Notice also this card is given equal billing as 0 and 78. And we have some kind of leopard or some kind of unusual looking animal with an elder rather than a younger. He looks, a lot older than what we're accustomed to seeing the Fool appear to be. Now, this card in English is given the name Consultant. So, and then when we look at the cheat sheet, it says, it doesn't say Consultant. It says, yes, it does, excuse me. It says the questionnaire represents the querent. And we notice that we have astrological and symbols on the cards too. So for anyone who would have been astrologically inclined, they would have been given clues to maybe the intent or the understanding of the card. The main consultant. So in this position, we don't see anything that resembles the Magician, which would have been position 1 in the TdM deck or the Italian decks. Now it almost looks like a star card, except that later on, I think we see a card that more resembles the star card because it has the traditional image of an Aquarian type of layout. So this one, we have the English translation underneath the French up there, equates with enlightenment. Now we have like a combination of a star in the top part and then like some kind of structure at the bottom with kids. And also we can credit Etteilla too for giving us different meanings, whether a card was right side up or reversed, right? So in this position, we have what is the ideal, and in this position is wisdom. So here we have a card that when you look at it, it really seems like it's got all the ingredients for the moon, right? We have the moon, we have 2 towers, we have 2 animals that appear to be canine, and then we have a crustacean, and then we have a body of water, we have a bank, right? you know, and we have a body of water. And yet the number 3 card translates as water or the heart of a situation. Let me pull the moon card from the No Blade deck. And for this, I'm using Marco Benedetti's. So you see, we have the ingredients for the moon card. We don't have any kind of eclipse thing going on in this card, notice. This is straight up just the moon without any kind of celestial thing happening with the moon. Now this card looks, you know, and he designates the number 4. He designates this card as air. And they both of these decks gave them a different word. But here we have what appears to be the classic, you know, image for the star card, right? We have the water bearer with her jugs. And then here we have what appears to be the world card. But as card number 5, it reads as voyage, you know. And I guess you could see the world as something to discover, right? So the world card, I think, probably took on a meaning to them for travel, seeing the world. I think the, well, I think too much. Okay, number 6, we have evening or nighttime, it looks like. And here it almost looks like a quick shorthand description of, you know, just the skies or the solar system. There's a symbol for Aquarius here. There's the star. There's the sun. There's a reference to, I guess that's Aries. And then we have either Scorpio or Virgo. I'm not well read on the symbols, so forgive me. So could this be the moon? You know, because the French word, you know, is nuit. Is that evening? And then this is jour, would be day. But in the earlier deck, the word they gave it is secrets. And then in reverse, it was truths. So we have nighttime, things that are happening in the darkness, could be secrets, definitely could be seen as secrets. And then things that happen in the day or in the light of day, we could say are more evident, right? So I can see how both of these card makers came up with their different translations. If they didn't have an exact word, I don't know. But is this the moon, right? Is this the card that we could, could understand was the moon versus this card? Excuse me. Versus this one? Like they took some really broad leaps, right? They took some really broad leaps. Or I say they, but I'm talking about I guess I'm talking about Etteilla and his school. Now what card is this? You know, number 7. Beware of those who would take balance and support away from you. That's the meaning on the cheat sheet, but I'm guessing maybe it was one of the cards from 2 to 5, because none of them, I found none of them represented in the deck. So the ones that I think we can't easily attach to one of the tarot cards that we are familiar with, maybe they're one of the cards 2 through 5, but I don't know. Tenacity. It's another card representing a female querent, or the questioner. So perhaps the male questioner and the female questioner could have been in place of one of the cards from 2 through 5, right? We have Justice as number 9. And we can identify Justice, as one of the tarot cards, as we can Temperance, Fortitude. But notice the numbers are all different, right? Although this one is the same, actually. This one is the same, but most of the other ones, as soon as I say they're all different, that most of the other, I pick one that's the same. But, most of them have a different order. Okay, Prudence. Now, I did a blog article a number of years ago entitled They Hanged Prudence, whereby the occultists may have believed that the hanged man was the virtue of prudence. So if you're interested in that article, I'll post it down below. And it's also number 12. So I don't know. Maybe this is one that they allowed to align with the number 12 card that they thought meant prudence. Marriage clearly seems to be similar to the Lover card. And the Force Majeure or Violence card in place of Devil. But clearly it's a reference to the Devil card. And notice the different number of 14 rather than 15. Now, this seems to be, for sure, a reference to the Magician, except that it's number 15. And instead of meaning manifestation or, anything that we might have expected to see coming from Rider-Waite Smith, I believe, they make it, the meaning is like malady or sorrow, chagrin, right? And then we have what appears to be the Angel card or Judgment. And instead of being the penultimate card that we see in the TdM deck, it's number 16. And Death is not 13, but 17. And then the Hermit is 18 rather than 9. But interestingly, 1 and 8 does equal 9, so I don't know how much room he was, wiggling around with that. And that the cheat sheet sort of suggests that the meaning for this card, number 18, is go against the status quo. So I'm not sure, but that kind of looks like the word traitor. Okay, yeah, here, betrayal. So it seems like they've given this a completely different connotation, right, than what at least I'm accustomed to, how I'm accustomed to thinking of this card. Okay, we have what kind of appears to be the Tower card, and it says misery or poverty, so I can understand And then the Fortune card, which is kind of a cool card for the Wheel of Fortune. And then we go into, so I didn't really end up pulling any of the TdM decks except for maybe one from the Noble. And I don't know if I failed to comment that the deck that I used, the Noble deck that I used, was a Marco Benedetti, because he really was sticking to the historic without making any changes to it. I like having decks that are, you know, cleared up, like the Fleur Noise or the Artisan Tarot kind of decks. But, you know, sometimes you just really want to see a historic deck, right? That is true to the the historic account. Anyway, so for the number 21 card, we're going, oh, excuse me, this is the last of the Triumph cards. So this one appears to look like the Chariot, but it means lawsuit or dissension. Let's see what it means on this card. Dissension. Be aware of the forces moving against you. So this is, I guess, one of the reasons why I don't really, except for my own fun sometimes, when I look at this deck or I peruse this deck, I probably peruse this deck once or twice a year, and just to touch base with it. But I don't typically use it because my interpretation of the cards really doesn't jibe with the occultists' interpretations, you know, and sometimes they do, but, you know, many times they don't. Okay, so here we have the King of what appears to be baton. And the Queen. And then the definitions we get, you know, like let's see, for the man, the definition is probity. Let's see what they called him here. The man of campaign. So maybe the guy in charge. I'm sorry, I'm umming so much. Let's see. A lawful man, or in reverse, a wicked man, perhaps. Okay, the female, the queen, the queen of the same suit is virtuous and devoted. The knight, departure and change, separation. The child, or the page or valet, stranger, originality. So even the publishers don't give these cards the same understanding, you know. Which is kind of interesting. Now we see in some decks that we saw pop up in the 70s, the same kind of configuration, right? Of like a split window for some of the pip cards. That is so strange when you really look at it. So we have 9 batons, and then we have 3 nails. And we've seen this, in I guess Picard's. We've seen this kind of. Is this what Picard was referencing? Let me see if I can find a couple decks like this. Okay, so I couldn't find the deck I was looking for, but so I grabbed the El Gran Esoterico because I recalled, you know, this kind of placement, right? But then we have for the number 8 card, 8 of batons, here it's more of a unified, and here it's 8 batons and then something here, so no. I'm not able to make the connection I thought my brain was making. And, you know, I should be honest, I'm having some memory issues, which is another reason why I really enjoy the cards, because it's my mental discipline is knowing the cards and, you know, understanding the cards. So when I pull them out, and it helps me remember things, and sometimes it reminds me of things that I get wrong, but you see what I'm saying? You know, like how we saw this kind of split. In some of those cards. Anyway, they really did deviate a lot from the TdM. And I think we saw chagrin and sorrow in one of the earlier cards, right? And then here we have it again here, right? So let's see. Yeah. Interesting. So there's a connection in this deck between what we think of as the Magician card, or the Bateleur, along with the 2 of batons. So now we're moving into the Suit of Cups with the King. And here he's just described as a blonde man, so a fair-haired gentleman. And she is a female, blonde-haired, right? So you don't see, you know, but here, okay, the one that I don't know if this was Grimaud. I don't remember the publication that put this one out. But they put in, you know, the female above reproach. So this, you know, definition has personality characteristics, whereas this one is strictly her, you know, superficial features. I guess arrival of something arriving. And I have these out of sequence, perhaps? No. Okay, so I have a card out of sequence. This card will pop up in this sequence eventually. But here we have a garçon, or studious boy. My boyfriend card. Now look, see, he's got a wreath in his hair, or no? I can't tell. Nothing in his hair. But his frock is covering the cup, and he's got something in his hand, or is that just a shadow? I think it's a shadow. So here we have number 10. The wish fulfillment card, victory, success, which is how we get the wish fulfillment, right? We get it from Etteilla's definition. That's something I use with the Nine of Cups. It's not my only understanding of the Nine of Cups, but it is one of them. It's one that I've taken in. Okay, so here we stick with the blonde theme for characteristics. Here, this card, the 8, is described as a female blonde or a young blonde. And here it's a sincere girl. Oh, filet blonde, a sincere girl who happens to be blonde, perhaps. Well, I screwed up. So for 7, we have the concept of ideas. Now, when we think of the 7 of Cups, isn't it the 7 of Cups of the Rider-Waite-Smith, where there's all kinds of things popping out of cups, right? It could be, you know, how they deviated from this concept of ideas, right? I'm going to forget trying to match them up because obviously this deck is out of order. So 6, the past, and we see that in the Rider-Waite-Smith image, right? Of a child offering another child a cup, something like that. Inheritance. So if you think of the 5 of Cups of Rider-Waite-Smith, let me pull that and see what we have for the 5 of Cups. So that's the one where, isn't that the one where somebody's has spilt cups and they look like they're sad, right? There's 3 that are turned over, but 2 that are upright. Quite a different understanding than inheritance. But let me pull that card to make sure I'm not talking out of line. Yes, we have this card. So here it's called inheritance, right? But here it doesn't look like inheritance, right? It looks like somebody's lost but still has something left over, but is mourning what they lost rather than celebrating what they have left. So in a sense, I guess it could come from inheritance because inheritance suggests that somebody died, right? So I guess that makes sense. This deck is from the 1909 Lily's recreation deck, and Conrad Stein, I think, is the gentleman who has made it available over at one of the playing card outlets, like Make Playing Cards or something like that. Go there and look for it. Good quality cards. Okay, so then we have boredom, ennui. So we do have, you know, for the suit of swords, you know, a reference to law, and it's kind of hard to miss, you know, he's got a weapon, right? But the man with the sword is a man of law, right? A man of law, but the woman with the sword is a widow. Because her power came from the man that died, I guess. And that's the way they saw things, I guess. We have a soldier and we have a spy. So the suit of swords is a more treacherous suit, right? We have a lot of, this is the 10. So the higher in the suit of swords is the more, you know, more damaging. But 7, right, is the hopeful, right? Because 7 for me is a hopeful number. It's a number that's transcendent, right? So when we have a 7 swords, there's a chance for improvement. So I can see some connections between how he understood these cards to mean and some of what I do. And the 5 of Swords, 5 is an unlucky number or a sad number or a challenging number. So it wouldn't be surprising to see that it's, understood as being loss. Okay, so we have the King of Coin. Businessman, a rich woman, profits coming in, a studious child, matters of home, realization. Wow, okay. But then for the 8 card, it's a girl. 7 is money coming in, perhaps. Your entourage, your surroundings, a loved one. Okay, so 5 of coin, he equated with love. Let me see what this deck, let me pause it. Yes, so the Lo Scarabeo deck also gave them the same keywords of lover. So the 5 of coin, when it pops up, could mean lover. So let me now pull the 5 of coins in the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is quite a different feel, right? So the Rider-Waite-Smith deck really took a leap in another direction for the 5 of coins. Etteilla would have attributed it to lover, right? And here it's quite a different feel. So we do get the understanding that individuals who were creating their tarot decks had their own agendas and their own understandings, and since time immemorial, or since the decks have been used for commercial divination out in the open, all deck creators really put their own spin on things, right? And their own understanding, and that's why I think you have to give yourself permission to understand, have a relationship with the cards with knowledge, not random, like I'm just gonna fake my way through this, tarot reading, not like that, but, based on study and looking at the cards as they come down to us, it's okay to put your own spin on a card, to understand it in either borrowing from someone who came before you or taking that information and then going a little bit your own way with it. And the thing about tarot is that, gosh, the longer you're in it, the longer you'll evolve. If I don't read the cards anything like I read them 45 years ago, and I probably have made changes or rethought things or made new connections that I might not have made 6 months ago. And I've been reading the cards, it'll soon be 50 years. In a couple of years, it'll be 50 years, So it's an ongoing understanding of not dismissing others that came before us, or even people who are making cards now who might make them different than what we would think. Just keep an open mind. That's it, and, like I said, I go through my Etteilla decks once or twice a year, just to touch base with them. And for those of you who might want to have a more up-to-date kind of understanding of these cards, the Paul Hewson deck is a good deck to use. Let me pull that and show you. Okay, so I paused so long ago looking for Paul Hewson's deck that I forgot what the point I was trying to make once I found it. However, I think it was this deck, and it does have, if you're interested in purchasing the deck, a very good book written by Paul Hewson to accompany the deck. And he puts into modern day cards a pretty good understanding for us, a taste of what Etteilla had in mind, right? Okay, for example, we said that the card that we might associate with the Magician card was had another name, and he was a little bit on the sinister side, perhaps. I forget. Let me see. What was the word they gave? Chagrin, sorrow, right? So we don't get that sense here. But, so it's not every single card he identifies with Etteilla, but a few of them, like there was one that was, I think, referencing like inheritance, and I think it may be similar to one of the cards we just saw in Etteilla. But of course, none of these are in. I think it was this one, the Seven of Coins. Okay, so let's see if the Seven of Coins identified as inheritance. Money. Oh well. Maybe you remember because you were just watching. Oh, the 5. No, 5. Nope. Anyway, I don't know. But my impression was that Hewson, that this particular deck, Dame Fortune's Wheel Tarot, right? I had a bit of a Etteilla spin to it. So if you want to do Etteilla in baby steps and you don't want to disassociate from, Rider-Waite-Smith or the Marseille style, this one is kind of a happy blend of both. It's kind of a happy blend, I mean, the cards have images, the pips have images, but they're not awful. Yeah, they're great. It's, if any rate, if a taste of Etteilla interests you and you want a hybrid between the TdM or Etteilla and Rider-Waite-Smith, this is not a bad deck to seek out, and the book is excellent. And I have a number of books by Paul Hewson. I also have the Devil's Picture book and the Mystical Origins of Tarot. And perhaps I have one or two other books where he contributed to the book. But he's a great source. At any rate, didn't mean to go off on that tangent. Until next time, friends, peace and stay well. And happy anniversary to me. Hey, if you've stuck it out this long, 45 minutes, oh God, universe bless you. If you could give me a thumbs up, refer me to a friend, post one of my videos somewhere, anything to help me get some traction. I'm still on a self-imposed moratorium. I have, I think, like $7. I have like $7 in my business bank account, and I tried to purchase something from a well-known deck creator, and I think it bounced, so I'm mortified. So any movement you can get to my site to help me out, I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, peace and stay well.